Hello and welcome to the Global Insight, where we update you on the latest events around the world. I am Esther Mwachuku. Lithuania closes 2 border crossings with Belarus. Zimbabwe deports Good Governance Africa CEO Chris Marling and team. Canada's Yellowknife 20,000 residents flee amid wildfire threats. Georgia sheriff probes threats against Trump grand jury. We'll begin with Lithuania, which has closed 2 of its 6 border checkpoints with Belarus, as announced earlier this month, citing the security risk posed by Russia's Wagner mercenary group. Both Samsko and Veracruz border checkpoints were shut last midnight. Officers laid road spikes at the closed checkpoints and will proceed to erect fences with barbed wire in the area today. Meanwhile, Lithuania, a member of NATO's eastern flank, responded to escalating tensions between the neighbors, with Vilnius warning of provocation threats to its officials. However, in Vilnius, it disclosed that the decision will also help control smuggling, as the remaining 4 border checkpoints have the X-ray systems to detect illegally transported goods, mainly cigarettes. You may not know, but the Lithuania-Belarus ties have been tense for years. It further deteriorated after Belarusian 2020 presidential elections are claimed to have been widely slammed and considered rigged. Belarus criticized the decision to close checkpoints, calling it far-fetched. Now, according to Belarus Border Force, in Lithuania, by taking such decisions, purposefully and deliberately creates artificial barriers on the border to serve its political ambitions. Elsewhere, Zimbabwean authorities have deported Good Governance Africa CEO and 3 of his colleagues. Chris Marling and his team flew into the country on Tuesday, but were on Thursday afternoon told by immigration officials to leave immediately. This was after being given permission to enter the country by officials at the Zimbabwean embassy in Pretoria school. Responding via a statement, GGA said their visit to Zimbabwe was linked to field research on election conditions and challenges ahead of the general elections next Wednesday. Maryland disclosed that immigration officials arrived at their hotel in Bulawayo for routine inspections of their passports. They were then summoned and asked questions about the reasons for their visit to the country. About an hour later, they were told to leave the country immediately and escorted back to the hotel and then to the airport. Maryland stated further that they were dismayed by the turn of events, but not surprised, as a pattern of bullying and anti-democratic behavior by the ZANU-PF-led government, especially in the run-up elections. Now, the government spokesperson Nick Mangwa stated on the X app, formerly called Twitter, that anyone who makes misrepresentations to immigration officers will be deported. Canadian fire crews have on Thursday battled to prevent wildfires from reaching the northern city of Yellowknife, where all 20,000 residents are living by cars and flights after an evacuation order was declared. Water bombers flew low over Yellowknife as thick smoke blanketed the capital of the vast and sparsely populated Northwest Territories. Officials say the fire, which is moving slowly, is now 15 kilometers northwest of the city and could reach the outskirts by Saturday if there is no rain. In the Pacific province of British Columbia, which has suffered unusually intense blazes this year, officials warned residents to prepare for extreme fire conditions. This weather event has the potential to be the most challenging 24 to 48 hours of the summer from a fire perspective. Now, in Yellowknife, hundreds of people lined up outside a local high school waiting to be taken to the airport for one of the 5 evacuation flights as planned to the neighboring province of Alberta yesterday. The Northwest Territories have limited infrastructure, and there is only one 2-lane road out of Yellowknife to the province of Alberta to the south. However, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau convened an emergency meeting on Thursday to discuss the wildfire crisis in the Northwest Territories. Defense Minister Bill Blair, speaking to the Canadian Broadcasting Corps after the meeting, said the federal government was closely monitoring the evacuations and was prepared to quickly airlift residents if land routes gets cut off. According to the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre, there were around 1,000 active forest fires in Canada, 265 of which were burning in the Northwest Territories. In another development, the Fulton County Sheriff's Office has stated on Thursday that law enforcement officials are investigating threats related to former U.S. President Donald Trump's election interference investigation in Georgia after names and addresses of grand jury members were posted online. It also noted that investigators are working closely with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies to track down the origin of threats in Fulton County and other jurisdictions. Posts on social media of the purported names and addresses of the Fulton County grand jury were tracked by Advanced Democracy, a non-profit research organization whose president, Dan Jones, is a former FBI investigator and staffer for the Senate Intelligence Committee. The organization also found posts employing violent rhetoric against Fannie Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney, who oversaw the more than 2-year investigation of a suspected scheme by Trump and 18 others to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. This month, following an indictment by U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith on Republican Trump's efforts to overturn his election defeat to Democrat Joe Biden, Trump lashed out on his Truth social media site, and it reads, "If you go after me, I am coming after you." The 98-page Georgia indictment on Monday listed 19 defendants and 41 criminal counts in all. Echoing his criticism of the other investigation he faces, Trump has called the indictment a political witch hunt. In many U.S. courts, including federal courts, the identities of grand jurors is kept secret. But in Georgia, their names are made public and were recorded at the bottom of the indictment. And that's all on Global Insight today. Many thanks for staying with us. I'm Esther Wachuku. Do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Voice of the People TV and our other social media platforms at VOP TV Live. Thank you for staying with us.